Through 3 games, Ohio State's defense has shown they're the real deal.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Victory Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. During today's show, we will discuss one thing Matt Patricia has done at a very high level early in the year, as well as if the Buckeyes got more pressure on the quarterback over the weekend. But first, one of the biggest storylines about Ohio State's defense coming into the year was that they were losing 8 starters from a national championship team. And in the fact that Ohio State's defense last year was one of the best in the country, those are some pretty big shoes to fill. Now, you know about Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Edric Houston and Caden McDonald among the guys that are up front. Arvo Reese played quite a bit a year ago, but he was not a starter. Lorenzo Styles Jr., Jermaine Matthews Jr., and others. You know these names, but you don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to play when they are getting starting snaps or if they are just playing 50 to 60 a game. And what we're finding right now, no matter if you are a starter on the Buckeyes defense or if you're a key rotation piece, this defense is started the year hot. They have yet to allow an opponent to score more than 9 points. Texas scored 7, they shut out Grambling, and then Ohio only scored 9. That is it. That's stuff that you think can happen, but I don't think it was expected. I don't think anybody out here really thought the Buckeyes defense would hold Texas to only 7 points, and that would come late in the fourth quarter when Texas was kind of pressing because they needed to put points on the board very, very quickly. Or the very next week when you're going up against Grambling, I mean, it's easy for an FCS school. I don't want to say easy, but it can happen where an FCS school comes in, they're scoring your backups. No, these ain't your normal backups. Raleigh Pettijohn, he ain't normal. TJ Alford, he ain't normal. Zion Grady, he ain't normal. These guys aren't normal. And so Ohio State's defense right now, where they got a lot of contributions from youngsters week number 2 in games 1 and 3, your starters played the entire time, along with some key rotation guys. And they didn't really give in. They didn't fold. They didn't just lay down and allow the other team to score multiple times, multiple touchdowns. No, what do? They stuck to what they believe in. They stuck to the plan, stuck to the process, as the coach told me on Friday night about after his team won a very big game. They're sticking to the process week after week after week. And heading into this off week, they can't let up because now you have 9 straight Big Ten games. And you can say, yeah, we started off hot, but there's more to be done. You are attacking a national championship this year. These aren't my words. These are Ryan Day and things that Ryan Day said at Big Ten Media Days, that Ohio State is not trying to defend a national championship like some people try to defend their home with a fence and other things that are more defense mechanisms. No, they are trying to attack a natty. When you're trying to attack a national championship, you can start things early in the year and you can start off hot, but you got to sustain it. And when you come back after the off week, you got DeMond Williams of Washington, who's a really good quarterback. You have Illinois. You have Minnesota. You have Wisconsin that are going to pose different threats. Now, if you're playing Danny O'Neal versus Billy Edwards, that's a different thing when it comes to playing with the Wisconsin Badgers. I am not sure the injury update for Wisconsin's QB1, but I'd feel more comfortable playing a backup with any of those teams. But that's just the first stretch into the Big Ten slate. 3 road games in 4 weeks. Homecoming is, I believe, the second game in that stretch when Minnesota comes to town. And so you've got a lot of big things happening, a lot of tough tests coming up. And Ohio State's defense, great. They're doing a lot of great things. And we can look at Caleb Downs and look at what Caleb Downs has done. You can look at Arvo Reese and Sonny Styles, look at what they have done. But I think the biggest storyline is just how collectively as a group, this team has played like one oiled machine. Kind of a page from the Drumline movie that so many of us watched when we were younger. one band, one sound. That's a good way to describe Ohio State's defense right now because they're playing like one band with one sound, almost like a string. One guy goes right, okay, cool. Then you're following, and then if there's a pulley system, if quarterback rolls out to his left, it's almost like everybody's right there in the correct spot every single time. One thing I have to remember with Ohio State's defense, and I think everyone needs to be reminded about, is they're not going to shut everybody out. And there will be a team that scores multiple touchdowns on them. That doesn't mean they're not great, or that doesn't mean that that's going to be a consistent thing where they're allowing 2 or 3 touchdowns week after week after week. No, that is just saying on that day, they played somebody that posed some threats, and all of a sudden, they didn't overcome that obstacle on that time. Now, they still might win the game, but they allowed somebody to score a couple touchdowns. I think it's going to happen at some point this year. Could it happen against Wisconsin? It could. Could it happen against Washington? Probably will. I am just going to say that if that happens, that doesn't mean Ohio State's defense isn't elite, nor is it maybe a slump after an off week. Now, if they come out and they're flat and they're not physical, and it's more what we witnessed after the loss to Oregon, there was an off week, and then you had Nebraska coming to the shoe. And I remember that game very, very well because it seemed like Ohio State wasn't really playing their best ball at that time. And they were kind of lackadaisical and not being fundamentally sound as they should have been. And they still won the game, but it was more of, well, are they going to lay things down? Are they not going to go all out? Remember a few years ago now, the Iowa game, after a hot start for Ohio State, the Buckeyes played 6 straight games, dominated every opponent. And then all of a sudden, after that off week, the Buckeyes went out there against Iowa. I believe Ohio State scored 50 points, but we were sitting here saying right here on the show, and I believe it was my guy, Jeff Hunt, and I were here discussing about why this didn't look correct and why it didn't feel right. They will say, Jay, do you always want to go by how you feel? No, but when my eyeballs are saying the things that my feelings are saying, maybe there's some validity to that. I trust my eyeballs more than the feeling because I am a fan. I do sometimes get a little emotional. I mean, we all do. And so I don't always go off the feeling. I go off the eyeballs. And at the time, my eyeballs were saying the same thing. But my guess is for this defense moving forward, you're going to rest up a little bit. You've earned the rest. Now, you didn't pick the off week. It was kind of a schedule maker thing. But it came at a great time. You played 3 straight games. Opponents, that was a really good opponent. A lesser opponent, really lesser opponent, and then a better opponent than the team you played in week 2. 3 different tests, 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different systems, and you handle all of them. I believe Buckeyes defense only allowed 4 plays of 10 or more yards against Ohio. They allowed a 67-yard touchdown pass that could have been a 25 to 30-yard gain, or even just a 25-yard gain if Lorenzo Styles Jr. had better technique. And let's say it was better technique and the ball still caught, still could have been about a 25-yard gain instead of a 67-yard touchdown pass. Outside of that, the Buckeyes gave up a 16-yard pass, an 11-yard run, and a 10-yard run. That is it. That is the kind of stuff that you expect from Ohio State's defense right now. Maybe it wasn't an expectation heading into the season, but through 3 games, I think the Buckeyes defense, with the guys up front, with the linebackers, with the secondary, and Matt Patricia leading this unit, you're going to expect them to slow down various quarterbacks because Parker Navarro is different than T-Set or Manning, and they still slowed that boy down. And I guarantee over the next few weeks, if Navarro is healthy, he is going to tear up his opponents. Not because they're back opponents, but because that man is really, really good. You know what else was really good and was better to see was the Buckeyes pass rush over the weekend because there were certain things they did that got attention and pressure in Parker Navarro's face. This episode is brought to you by the Game Cap. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Once again, when you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. Once again, head to thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKED ON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I always reach for my favorite flavor, which happens to be watermelon, because it's refreshing and gives me that quick lift before a busy day. I've been eyeing grape lately, and it sounds like the perfect one to try next. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in and that it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing we talked a lot about heading into the game against Ohio was Ohio State needing to get more pressure on the quarterback. The Buckeyes had 1 sack against Texas, 2 sacks against Grambling State. It's not good enough. My number for the Grambling State game was for the Buckeyes to have at least 4 sacks. That didn't happen, and the 2 that they got, I'm glad they got them, but y'all, I left that performance thinking, well, a shutout's great, and wondering why the Buckeyes didn't get more pressure on the quarterback. Well, against Ohio, the Buckeyes listened not only to this show, but also listened to the coaches, because the Buckeyes definitely got more pressure on the quarterback, and they were in the backfield a lot. 4 sacks by the team. They had 7 tackles for loss. You can't complain about what the Buckeyes did in that game. Yeah, you may want to say 6 or 7 or 8. That's great. But against Ohio, that team that's trying to do different things to confuse you, based off the quarterback that they have on the field at that time, because Parker Navarro was out for a little bit, 4 sacks is great. It's a step in the right direction. You're literally doubling the other game high from the previous week. Hats off to everybody involved. The coaches, the players, everyone involved. There was a game plan put in place, and they were successful with it. And there are certain guys that I want to highlight here specifically for some things that are in this stat sheet, and then there are other ones that you wouldn't see. Caden Curry, to me, has been one of those guys that should play every single down. He had 4 tackles, 1 sack. That was his tackle for loss, and then he had a pass breakup. And that pass breakup was key because sometimes getting pressure on the quarterback or disrupting a pass is not so much getting within 3 feet of the quarterback. Sometimes it's simply getting your hand up and swatting a ball. And he realized on that play, of course, it goes into timing and preparation in the film room and on the practice field to know when a quarterback might throw, what his rhythm is, what his cadence is. And when you figure all that stuff out, you can kind of jump a pass, get your paw up in the air, and bat that thing down. And he did that. And Caden Curry, to me, not only with that, but also just the way that he is all over the field, he is making plays. He is a guy that needs to play all the time. If you want to rotate Hicks and Jackson Jr. and Atkinson and others, do it. That's great. Keep doing it. But to me, among all the guys on the defensive front, the starters and the backups, you got to play Caden Curry. I mean, he is one of those guys that can play outside or defensive end or play nose at 260 pounds. Now, I know when he was coming out of high school, out of Center Grove High School, a lot of people were saying, I heard a couple guys that cover Ohio State say, well, he might play D tackle because he was coming in at 250. Wasn't really the normal length at defensive end. And so you're wondering, like, will he bulk up or beef up to 280 or 275 to play 3 tech, or will he stay where he is and play on the outside? He played on the outside. That was the expectation. But in high school, he played a lot at the nose. And I know I said that previously, maybe last week, but that's something I think is going to be seen a lot more throughout the year. It's having a quicker nose tackle or nose guard that can disrupt the center. And then you have quicker guys on the outside. Then you have Arvo Reese and Downs and Styles and all these other guys, McLean, up at the line of scrimmage, moving back, moving forward, moving back. I mean, the versatility and the speed and quickness that Ohio State's defense can play with, especially up front with how versatile these guys are, it's going to cause so many problems for opposing not only coaches, think about the offensive linemen. Think about it. You're a 2-year starter, and most of the time you see a team that runs a 4-2-5. They are running a 4-2-5 every play. Or maybe it's a 4-3 or a 3-4, 3-3-5, whatever the base is, that's what they're going to run. And they don't really put a quick guy in the middle. You keep your quick guys on the outside, your beefy guys in the middle of the defensive line. That's what you do. Well, Ohio State might start a guy at D end. All of a sudden, a few plays later, he's playing at the nose. Well, the guy that's replacing him on the outside is smaller and quicker than the other side, and then on the opposite end of the smaller and quicker guy is somebody that's a normal defensive end size, but he has quickness and speed that's not normal. And so if I'm an opposing offensive line, I'm trying to figure out, where do I slide the protection? Do I have to double this guy? Do I have to try something different? Because think about it. If you're head up on the nose, you're 260, you're quicker than the average nose tackle. That center is snapping the ball. He only has one hand to get you. So he's already at a disadvantage. So while he's at a disadvantage, your quickness should be able to win that battle. Now, you're going to lose sometimes, so you should be able to win that battle more often than not simply by him being at a disadvantage because homie has one hand to block and the other hand has to go backwards to start the play. It's wild to think that this stuff is happening right now with Matt Patricia coming to Ohio State. I've been a big Caden Curry guy. I was really up in the air about what role he would play with the Buckeyes defense this year, not because he's not good, but I didn't know if you wanted two Kenyatta Jackson Jr.'s, that size, that length, that speed, that quickness on the edge, or if you wanted someone that's a little bit quicker and maybe 260, but a different build, different physically constructed differently at 260. So I like it. Also, Bo Atkinson to me is one that is going to be hard to keep off the field as well. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. is playing better. I know when he got knocked out of the Texas game and then it came back against Grambling, didn't really play a lot, but I like what we got from K-Jack on Saturday night. But I'm getting to like more of what we're seeing from Bo Atkinson. Now, I don't think you're going to start Curry and Atkinson together. I still think for right now, Atkinson might come off the bench. But if there's one thing about what Matt Patricia has done so far in the multiplicity the defense has played with, I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State at some point rolls out there a 3-4 defense. Your outside backers, your inside backers. I mean, you could easily put C.J. Hicks as an outside backer along with Sonny Styles. Your inside backers are Peyton Pierce and Arvell Reese. And then your defensive front, you could put Caden McDonald at the nose. You could put one D-end spot, Edric Houston, the other D-end spot, K-Jack, Bo Atkinson, Caden Curry, and let that thing ride. Because something tells me, heading into the Michigan game, and I may let the cat out the bag. This is not no inside knowledge, just me spitballing and thinking about what might happen. I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State against Michigan rolls out there in a 3-4 defense and you get McDonald and Houston on the field. You pick the other defensive end, and then you have C.J. Hicks and 3 other linebackers. And that's the first time they roll that out there. And I say that because it's my childhood. I've talked about it quite a bit, being a Colts fan. While Patricia was not the D coordinator throughout a lot of Peyton Manning's time being the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, Patricia was a position coach. And he was instrumental in that defense playing the way that it did. So maybe he pulls some more of his NFL stuff in. I don't know. Right now, when it comes to Ohio State's defense, we thought the base was a 4-2-5. I still think that is the base, but it's becoming more of a base personnel grouping. It's not so much the base formation. 4-2-5 looks great, but they roll out there a lot in 3-man fronts. A lot. And with the 3-man front, you may think, okay, you know what's coming next. You don't, because you have no idea where the pressure is coming from. And it's been so enjoyable to see Ohio State's defense do the things we have been saying and asking them to do for years and doing it early with a new DC. Matt Patricia, to me, we're going to talk more about him in the very next segment. To me, Matt Patricia has been a breath of fresh air to bring to Ohio State because you're not only having an elite defense, you're having an elite defense with a defensive coordinator that you 100% know is having fun. He is smiling from ear to ear. He is holding, I believe it was his daughter who he was walking into the stadium with, looking like it's just a proud dad. So you're about to go in there and play a really good Ohio Bobcat team. And you're walking in here like, oh, man, this is just the best day of my life. Why? Because you're enjoying what you do. He wanted to get back into teaching ball because in the NFL, you don't spend a lot of time teaching ball. While he's teaching ball, he's also molding young men. And even when he came to Edric Houston before the game on Saturday night, and I don't know what was said, but there was a video put up, I believe, by 10 TV's Adam King on Twitter, where he took a video of Edric Houston and Matt Patricia hugging and smiling, pat and moving on. And it may have been the conversation that Tywone Malone Jr. was starting that day. And if that was it, I don't know. But he just looks so happy. Of course, when your unit is successful, that's going to help you be happier. But he is being very happy. Him being happy makes me happy for him. I'm already glad he's at Ohio State. But I'm genuinely happy for the individual, the man that Matt Patricia is, because he looks like he's having the time of his life. And part of the reason he's having a time of his life is because of one thing he has done very well early in the year. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. I love checking projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Once again, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by using FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, download the FanDuel app now by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Matt Patricia being at Ohio State is something I have been very high on. But there were still some things that were left up in the air. What kind of defense would he bring to Ohio State? What would the base formation be? Would it be Ohio State's defense versus would it be Patricia's defense? And Ryan Day made it very clear they'll be playing Ohio State's defense. Well, he said that. That came out of his mouth. What we have seen to me is a mixture of the two. A mixture of Ohio State's defense with the base personnel, sometimes the base 4-2-5 look, and Matt Patricia's defense, which is multiplicity every single down. And I love the mixture. I 100% love the mixture of what Ryan Day has already started and Patricia coming in and providing a new look, a fresh look on what a defense should be. And it's great that Ryan Day a year ago, really a few years ago, decided that he wanted to hire a defensive coordinator that could be the head coach of the defense. That's your role. That's your side of the ball. I am still the overseer, and you still have to answer to me, but that's your side of the ball. And as Ryan Day said during a presser, when someone asked what went into Patricia being on the sideline during the game versus up in the box, Ryan Day said that was his call. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be on the field, and so that's where he is. Then he jokingly said, "Just get off the field on 3rd down," and that's it. That's literally it. You could be more. You could be more creative. You can be more multiple on defense, whatever the case may be. And homie, remember this: just get off the field on 3rd down. And what has Ohio State done at a pretty good rate this year? They have gotten off the field on 3rd down. They're not perfect. They have a lot of teams to score. They've made their own mistakes. But overall, Patricia has done a great job of not only being creative on defense, but he's laid the foundation with this unit. You can marvel at the foundation of a Caleb Downs or the foundation of a Caden McDonald or Sonny Styles or Alvaro Reese. That's great. That's fun. Patricia has laid the groundwork and laid the right foundation. That this defense is fundamentally sound. They're able to absorb and be a straight up sponge when it comes to getting all of the elite NFL type knowledge that Patricia is coaching, and they're getting it every single day in practice. I mean, I recently heard and I listened to the pregame show before Saturday's game, and normally I don't do the pregame shows, but this week we did, and at least it's not my cup of tea most of the time. But Joshua Perry was on there, and there was a conversation about the Buckeyes defense before the game against Ohio. And Joshua Perry said, when I was on the team, we mainly ran cover 4. We had 2 or 3 plays in the playbook, and that was it. And we all remember there were times during those days when Joshua Perry was on the team, and we were thinking, why won't y'all run something else? I mean, we know y'all are great. We know y'all are really, really good players. Y'all don't have to stick in the same old base setup every single week. But they did it all the time. And I put emphasis on base because there were times I was watching Ohio State's defense thinking, get out of your 4-3. Get out of your same old boring formation. Y'all line up in the same spot every time. With the same guys in the same positions every single play. And when somebody starts to find a hole in the defense, what did y'all do? We stuck to what we do best. What is that? The same old setup. It worked. It worked. But when Joshua Perry talks about, well, that's what we did. But seeing this defense do this now and different creativity and different looks, it's going to be very, very hard for teams to stop. The next test is against Washington. It's about a week and a half from now, a couple weeks from now, and Washington is going to be a really good team. You want to hear me talk a lot about Damon Williams heading into that game. I know when there's a crossover with Locked On Huskies, I assume they get 2 hosts on that show, and I believe it's going to be with Roman Tomashoff. When that happens, you are going to hear me and Roman talk about Damon Williams a lot. But let's not forget, they got Jonah Coleman, who might be the best back in the Big Ten. Also, they have Denzel Boston, who provides them to have a 3-headed monster on offense that's going to be a test for Aikman Olsen and Jermaine Matthews Jr. So it's almost like they have their own big 3 on offense. Their defense has gotten better. Their O-line has gotten better. Last year, the O-line was pretty bad. And you're going to see and hear us talk about them and think, Jay, do you think Ohio State's defense is up to the task to stopping Washington's offense? I'm going to say yes. What we got from Patricia in week number 1 was so much fun to watch. And no, people say, well, it's week 1, and he spent all of training camp preparing for the game. I don't think he spent all training camp, but he spent all summer, all offseason preparing for that game. He watched Arch Manning's film from last year. He watched Arch Manning probably from high school. He watched some old Sarkisian from Sarkisian's early days, probably 10 years ago when Sark was coaching. He watched a lot of film preparing for that game. And that's why that game plan was so great. But also, you're going to give Matt Patricia, with this defense, an off week, an extra week to prepare for Washington? Y'all better watch out. And who's to say he hasn't been preparing for them already? And who's to say he's not preparing for Michigan right now? I would assume that he is, because if there's one thing I learned about Urban Meyer that I think Ryan Day is slowly going to start doing, if he hasn't already, is Urban Meyer prepared for Michigan all year long. There were guys on Urban staff that were following Michigan like they were covering the Wolverines. They knew who they were recruiting. They knew who might commit and when they might commit. They knew their offense, their defense. They followed and they watched film. They did everything. And to me, not only do you need to do that to beat Michigan, but when you have extra time to prepare for an opponent, take advantage of that time. And I think going into that game, Patricia is going to have an answer for Washington. I think the Buckeyes defense is going to be lights out. They've been lights out to start the year, not only against Texas, but against Grambling State and against the Ohio Bobcats. I believe the Bobcats had less than 200 total yards of offense. Hats off to them. But Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, those are the next 4 games. While Patricia has laid the foundation already, I think that foundation is going to be solid. It's something you can build upon. he is going to be so specific in game planning for upcoming quarterbacks that I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State rolled out there in a game with a 3-man front to start a game. It wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me if they decided to play three or four linebackers instead of the two during a game. Why? Because they can. Ohio State has 3 linebackers that are starting caliber. I know 2 have started, but Peyton Pierce is a guy that I think is going to be a big, big problem for Big Ten teams because he is a big deal. You know what also is a big deal? What Locked On has gotten themselves into, because Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Football, because my guy Spencer McLaughlin is the man to keep you ready and up to date with what's going on around the wild world of college football. Follow Locked On College Football and Locked On Buckeyes on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Victory Monday. We'll see you next time.